Well, we're going to have a little unusual twist on our podcast today. So, for those of you who are entrepreneurs or wanting to be entrepreneurs in corporate executive jobs, et cetera, and want to know what it's like behind the scenes and why people, when you have this calling to do something different, I think we're going to share our stories today. And I think so happy to have Caroline Avinger and Jennifer Murphy, who both are part of our little pod, as we call it, our accountability pod. So welcome, both of you.
Thanks so much for having us.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're all in this together. I'm not doing anything. I'm just participating like you all are, with the idea being to share with our audiences what this is. So anyway, so what we decided to do is going to be this is the first episode of our 3-part series. Today, we're going to discuss a topic that resonates with so many leaders out there, from corporate to entrepreneur. So, in this time and space that we're in, there's so many people wanting to feel free and be entrepreneurs. Well, many of us have been on that journey, and today we'll explore the challenges, the rewards, and the insights that come from making that transition. So, Caroline, why don't you start us off today?
Okay. Well, part of my journey, really, I've always had sort of that entrepreneurial side of business. I taught school for a while. I've worked corporate. I worked for a public speaking school for a number of years. And there's always been sort of that thread of doing my own thing sort of on the side. And in 2014 is when I really launched into being full-time entrepreneur, with a short stint since then in corporate, which was a good experience. But it was really about being my own boss, making my own schedule, but also creating a business, a job that I loved, that I was excited to get up and do, that I was helping other people, that I could see transformation. And I've really enjoyed it. Certainly challenges. I mean, I've gone from it being full-time to it being more of a side hustle and back to full-time based on sort of the ebb and flow of life. But on the whole, it has been my main profession for, 20 years now, maybe more.
What prompted you to actually make the leap, like to do it full-time, Caroline?
So many things, but, I was still working corporate during COVID and working from home. And that element of being at home and really being more in control of my schedule than I had been for several years prior pushed me to go back to doing it full time. I really liked having that control. And that's part of it, even though sometimes being an entrepreneur is the definition of it is being completely out of control. But I like being the master of my own schedule, and I like what I do, and I like doing it the way I do it. It's not, about to lose my laptop there. I apologize. I get to do it the way I want to do it. My goals, my culture for my business, how I present it to people, how I work with people. It's all based on how I can serve them best. And that's how I wanted to work. It's not always about the bottom line.
Absolutely. Well, it's so interesting. Your story about just it being over a number of years, I think that was what I experienced too. I think some people, when they're thinking, okay, I want to leave corporate to start my own business, it's not like an immediate type of, I mean, it could be, I guess some people may say, you know what, I got to go do this right now. But for me, I had the same experience, Caroline. It was a number of years that I kind of had, I look back now, I can see where seeds were being planted all through the years of like having all these ideas and thoughts and, not being able to sleep at night because I would just wake up with all these different thoughts. Okay, here are topics that I could teach on or coach leaders on, because my passion is around leadership development. And so I would just be flooded with ideas. And this really kind of, evolved over years. For me, though, I think, both personally and professionally, I also had the same desire. I wanted to create flexibility in my schedule, from a personal perspective, just being more available for my family. But it was really kind of taking stock of, okay, what matters most, right? And and getting to a point, right, where it was like, I'm ready for a change from the fast pace and the stress and the constant running from meeting to meeting in corporate, where in the past it used to be a season that you just persevered through. But for me, I think it was the last several years, it kind of became the norm. And I think for me, it was, okay, it's time to pause and kind of reevaluate what matters.
I think that that idea of what matters, and it's really what matters about what you're teaching too. I mean, for me, it's about shepherding people through certain processes, whether it's the public speaking or the business etiquette, not just standing up and presenting and forging those relationships, which is something that, with the bold conscious connections that Raju talks about so much, that's part of it. And sometimes you don't get to do that in a corporate job because you are constantly working to get to whatever that goal is for the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, Caroline. So you mentioned connections. So how do you think building connections outside of the corporate structure helps with the shift to entrepreneurship? Because people, at least in my audience, are people who are on the cusp of making that jump, but there is, of course, fear of financial, security, insecurity, if you will, lifestyle, status, whatever they had in their job. So, I always also emphasize that one of the things that I didn't do 20 years ago, and I wish I had a magic pill or some basic knowledge, I actually was not listening to any of my board members. I had a huge ego, my God, coming from Wall Street, like you wouldn't believe.
I can't imagine you with a huge ego.
So I had great, amazing, stature, sort of high stature people on my board, and I wasn't listening to them. That's one of the big findings. Second, I didn't want anybody to have equity in my company. I mean, I was so full of myself. It's not even funny. So, but mentorship, if somebody had told me, I only discovered that 5 years ago that I should have had mentors. I've been in this business for 20 years, and I took people's courses, I went to seminars and coaching, etc. But I never had them be my mentors or coaches. So how do you, in terms of, as you build connections outside corporate structure, how does that help with the shift to?
I think a lot of times mentors, especially if you're not familiar with the process, you can look at mentors as someone who's going to become your boss. Like, well, I'm going to have to do what she tells me to do. And that's why I got out of corporate. And so truly understanding what a mentor relationship looks like. And there are plenty of articles and websites and podcasts and all that really delve into the dynamics of a mentoring relationship and what that should look like, but also finding people who are where you are. Like our group, I think that we found each other, and entrepreneurship is notoriously lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of like being a CEO and you're up there by yourself. Being an entrepreneur, I think, can be kind of the same way. Mm-hmm. And so finding people who are on that journey at whatever point, preferably sort of close to where you are, but also maybe further along who have had different experiences so that you can learn from their mistakes and from their successes. I feel like we connected because we were geographically close. I mean, I think that was the first step in how the three of us connected. And then we realized, okay, so we're also all in similar roles. We have similar goals for our business, and we're in similar businesses.
Right.
And just having people to bounce ideas off of and to see, if this isn't working, what do you think I should do? And get that. It's sort of your own little board of directors, but it's not impacting your business. It's your personal board of directors to go along with your entrepreneurial journey.
Right. I mean, we've been at this now for almost 8 or 10 months together, and I just feel like I can talk to you about anything because, personal or otherwise, professional, how it's affecting me. So it's been amazing being together here.
And it speaks to the power of this medium because we have only met in person once,
yeah.
And yet we've been able to forge a really solid relationship with each other through the screen.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Jen, I have a question for you. So how can people who are, as I said, on the cusp wanting to take the plunge, what should they keep in mind in terms of their mission, et cetera, that they're faced with the uncertainty of starting a business? Because it is it's crazy to jump into an unknown, right? Most people aren't geared for that.
Yeah, no, I think, when I reflect on my own journey, a lot of it came back to reflecting of the themes that have been recurring through my life over the last number of years. Like, again, kind of going back to, what is my mission? What do I want it to look like? I think you need to be clear about that. You won't have all the answers.
Right.
But that's where we were talking about connections, that, making those relationships, talking to people, you start to learn what things are needed, right? And what you need to do to get yourself up and running. But I think you do need to have a mission. You need to understand what you want to do. Like for me, I knew what my passion was. I knew what my strengths and gifts were. People always will say, what's the one thing you would do that nobody, if you never got paid, what would it be? Of course, as an entrepreneur, you want to be paid. But I think you need to do that kind of self-reflection so that you can realize, okay, this is something that I'm really good at. It's meaningful to me, as you said, Caroline. You want to do something that is impactful to people and helps them. That's really kind of the, what is that for you as a person? I think you have to determine that. But I do think you have to, like for myself, like there were a lot of things that kind of converged at the same time. So I had been thinking about this for years. I had making connections with people to learn about entrepreneurship and what would I need to entail. I think that education and really development for yourself personally is really important before you go off and start your own business. And development from a sense of, what do you need to know as a small business owner? Like I attended a couple of different conferences with business leaders. And it was an opportunity for me to learn some of the basics about having my own business, but it also allowed me to network and connect with other leaders. And it helped me validate that what I wanted to do, there was a need for it. So I do think, it's getting clear about your mission, but also validating in some way that there is a need for what you have to offer. Like in corporate, you can see the need all around you, right? But I think you do have to kind of test the waters a bit and kind of see, is this what you want to offer? Is this something people would actually seek you out for?
So true. I mean, I didn't do any of these things when I left the job. It's just, I'm a risk taker. I was risk manager for the big firm, but I meant you take risks, because if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? And so for me, the catalyst was the tsunami, right? When finally I tried to resign twice and I didn't after 16 or 18 years. And then when we were alive and we were all swept away and then came back, it was like, that was the catalyst. I didn't need any more, anything to push me over, but I didn't have a plan either. So because I was so full of myself, as I said earlier, that I could buy somebody's company and grow it, that kind of thing. I was like an M&A guy, I was like, okay, ready to do this. And believe me, I did that. I tried 6 different things and they all collapsed. It didn't happen. And so I was stuck with my own startup, got to start somewhere, and then just started. And so I was the chief salesman, chairman, CEO, operations guy. I was all over the world, traveling with a suitcase and just asking for contracts and so on. I don't know, I'm getting off on my journey here a little bit, but it's crazy. I didn't have any preparation. I launched within 4 months of leaving the job. Mm-hmm. So I did. However, I just had a different idea of what it was going to be. As I said, I had these great chairman of that board and this, that, the other as part of my board. And they were trying to tell me things and I wasn't listening to them. I guess I wasn't listening. It's the only thing I can say. And that realization came much, much later. So my business got into trouble. All sorts of, and I said, I'm the owner. So I spent all my money building this business, and it was just lots of wrong things I did. So today, when I'm helping some of my clients, I really want them, like you said, Jen, to have a plan and you validate your idea, because if you don't have a validation, and you can have the best idea in the world, but if no one's willing to pay for it and be your client, then. And then the other thing I wasn't very good at, which I think it's a journey forever, is if you can't sell, you can't make any money. I was, and I think I continue to learn in this area of selling. And selling is, seems sleazy and icky, etc., but it isn't. as we now have learned from our mentors, like, oh my God, it's the most sacred thing you could do, but
Sure.
it's how you do it. It's
Yeah.
how you do it. And I think it's so incredible.
So
That's
speaking
always
of,
been hard for me. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I was going to ask you, Raju, like for people who selling doesn't come natural, right? So
Yeah.
myself, I'll look back in my career. I remember a conversation I had with a salesman that I worked with in a company I worked for many years ago. And there was an opportunity to go into sales, and I was kind of thinking about it because I loved the customer base, and I was very familiar with that part of our, our organization. But I was like, I'm not a salesperson, and he was like, you're selling every day, Jennifer. Like, you're selling every day with what you do, because it comes down to understanding needs, and it's your ability to influence as well, and helping people bridge the connect. To your point, it's a very sacred experience in the sense that you're, when your intentions are good, right? Like when your goal is to, you see a need and you see that person that might want that additional whatever it is that you're selling, or you're offering, and trying to help them determine, is this a good fit or not for them? And if it is, then great. Then this is an opportunity for you to help that person and make a positive impact in their life, which ultimately is our motivation for what we do. How do you help people kind of make that connection, Raju, if they don't feel like they're a salesperson?
Well, I think, again, I can only share what I have learned and what I ended up doing, is because if you are not trying to your point, you're not intentionally trying to woo them into something that they may not want, right? But if you know that they want it and you have something to give, they may choose your product or service, or they can choose somebody else's. So what I say is, do whatever you need to do. Don't buy mine. Don't buy my service, but get yourself, that product or the service, because you owe it to yourself, because we've talked about it, right? So we go through what they need. It's clear. Now it's a matter of who they choose as a coach or what have you, because I go, choose whoever, but take action, because without action, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Now, that sometimes wins the client, sometimes I lose the client, but I don't lose anything, because somewhere I made an impact. And that's all that matters. And if you start thinking that way, and actually living it, it's a harder road to climb, but it feels more authentic to me.
Don't you feel like that's living your mission? I mean, if it is to make an impact on others, it's making an impact on others. And yes, I do want you to buy my services, my product, whatever. But if what's important to you is that mission, then you just want them to act. And I think that lends some authenticity. And to your point, it kind of takes away that sort of sleaziness. You feel like, oh, I'm selling. You're actually serving, is what it comes down to.
Serving, exactly. And so I think that's, serve before you sell. And I think that's the mission for all of us. Serve before you sell. Because Jeff Walker said, this is all borrowed stuff. I don't have anything original to offer. But I pay attention to what they're saying, and I go, okay, it makes a lot of sense. If I serve, add value, can you imagine what if this guy is giving it to me for free, what his paid product would be like? I mean, it's just, Amy says that too. So I think it's fantastic. So I have, just to kind of try to summarize, because we're kind of running out of time on this episode. Caroline, you if you could just say, these are the 2 or 3 things that you learned during that jump that you made, so that people listening here can say, or even if it's one, it's cool, that they should be the most important thing, and then we'll do the same with Jen.
I think, past the point of building your business, of knowing what it is, having your mission, knowing what it is that you're selling or providing, it is really finding that connection with a group of people like we have done to walk with you on that path of entrepreneurship, so that you have a sounding board, and that it's a place where you can commiserate, you can celebrate, you can find commonalities that you can then lead into with clients. It just gives you so much support and content and direction and accountability that I didn't do that when I first started out. And so I would be all over the place. And this has really helped me fine tune. It's helped me focus. It's held me accountable, not only to my mission, but to my day-to-day activities.
Mhm.
And I think finding a group that you can work with, and they don't have to be in your industry, but that they are doing something similar in terms of an entrepreneurial endeavor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I so love that, Carolina, and you're so right.
I love it.
You said it so beautifully, and I would say, just to that is we don't have all the answers when we first start, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have everything baked out perfectly well. Like even as I was reflecting, about my own journey, you don't have to have a website done when you first start, right? That can come like it's. I think there are other things you can do certainly, but I think having a group of people that can support you and you can be that support for them, it has really been impactful in my journey, without a doubt.
Oh, so that's the number for you as well.
Well, I would say I'm agreeing with Caroline. The only thing I would add to that, just in my own experience, I think you really have to pay attention to those recurring themes in your life. Like for me, like just those constant ideas and thoughts, and that would get me real excited about like maybe I could do this. But also from a personal perspective, like what were those things that really mattered to me and how I created my life, with my family, like what did I want that to look like? And I agree with you. Something you said earlier, Raju, I think is real important to help people remember is there comes a point where you do have to take a step. Right. You have to take action at some point. Yeah. And that can look different for each person. Some people like yourself, you're good with the risk, right? And you're ready to go. And people can be very successful that way. Other times it may take a little more preparation because even though I wanted to do this and I had the desires on my heart, like I said, there were a lot of things last year personally that just kind of it all converged together. And I knew that, it's now or never. And I really had a lot of confirmations throughout the year that were, validating that now was the time. Right. So I do think it's about paying attention to those things that you continue to think and feel, and those ideas and thoughts. You got to pay attention to that and do something with it.
So true. So good. All right, so I have a 5-part lesson, but I'm not going to discuss that. The one thing I'll say is,
what's your one thing?
Very hard to get Raju to say one thing. So the one thing I would say, as I've always said, not listening to anybody and paying attention to your point, Jen. I'd say that in my statement, as an aspiration statement, is if you can focus on your what and your why that you want to do that what, the how will take care of itself. Mm-hmm. There'll always be problems. There'll always be inevitable hurdles. You have had that in your corporate job. So don't tell me that you just climbed the ladder and boom, suddenly one day you found yourself there. No, you worked your butt off to get there because you were inspired to produce, to do well for yourself and for your company, et cetera. So you have to apply the same principle. You're going to have hurdles, but if you let the hurdles overcome your why and what, you'll never get going. Mm-hmm. So you're always stepping into the unknown. So focus on your why you want to do what you want to do, and then just if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it now? When else are you going to do it?
Yeah. You have to start.
Get started. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. So we've covered a lot today, from building new connections to staying grounded in our missions and to the mindset required to make the shift from corporate to entrepreneurial. It's clear that this journey is deeply personal for each of us, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also incredibly rewarding. And I cannot tell you, all about, the accountability, et cetera, that we've got together. So really, really appreciate you being here. And thanks for those who are listening, watching. In our next episode, we're going to explore the concept of what we call conscious business and how we can lead in ways that are both impactful and ethical. We'll see you next time.